Fast fashion continues to be an integral part of our society, serving as a means of expression and reflecting the values, beliefs, and traditions of different communities. Companies have taken this opportunity to profit off of this pattern. Today, many fashion brands and major corporations produce clothing at rapid rates, increasing accessibility and affordability.
In turn, increased production has led to increased customer demand, now at an all-time high with today's world of ever-changing trends. Clothes are bought in bulk and discarded once deemed unfit or no longer on trend.
In the United States alone, over 85% of textiles produced end up in landfills. Over 69% of these textiles are produced using synthetic fibers, which take decades to decompose.
Not to mention, the fast fashion industry turns to cheap sources of labor to produce clothing, employing around 75 million workers worldwide, working close to 17 hours a day with less than 2% making a livable wage.
However, the effects caused by fast fashion are overlooked in developing countries such as the US. This is because most garment factories are located in developing nations, causing many Americans to ignore the circumstances and treatment garment workers face. This is unethical, and for the fate of our future, we must prioritize sustainability over the convenience of fast fashion.
Before we begin, let's define what fast fashion actually is. Fast fashion is a term that describes the production and distribution of low-priced clothing that attempts to meet the current, ever-changing trends. This definition is a little bit confusing, so to sum it up, it's just companies that produce and sell cheap clothing to fit the trends. Major fast fashion brands include Zara, H&M, and Forever 21. All companies that sell a large selection of low-cost clothes that fit the current fashion.
You might be wondering, why did we choose this topic in the first place? Socially, the effects of fast fashion, specifically on workers, is significantly overlooked in our schools, homes, and communities since it does not directly affect people in the United States.
This is because most unethical practices are conducted overseas, such as the abuse that workers face in countries like Bangladesh, with a large number of garment factories and the environmental impacts caused by these factories as well, with considerable rates of carbon emission, waste, and water consumption.
In the long run, the environmental impacts of the fast fashion industry will become a detriment to our society, with higher pollution rates, lower water quality, and increased global warming causing communities and animals to suffer.
We wanted to see how our community contributed to this, and we did so by conducting a survey. We surveyed 30 randomly selected participants from Brambleton Public Library, both teens and adults, to observe community usage of secondhand clothing versus fast fashion. We found that all 30 participants purchased clothing from fast fashion retailers. However, 23 participants also purchased clothing secondhand.
Our takeaway is that while thrifting is fairly common in our community, fast fashion is integrated into society and is often unavoidable. Instead of trying to eliminate its usage completely, we believe the best course of action is to concurrently promote sustainable methods.
Fast fashion is detrimental to our environment in more ways than you might think. According to the World Research Institute, or the WRI for short, in 2019, around 1.025 billion tons of carbon dioxide, or around 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, were generated due to the fashion industry.
You might be wondering, how does it produce so much carbon dioxide? The textile production process uses various fossil fuels, such as oil and other gas, causing carbon dioxide emissions to increase. Polyester, a commonly used synthetic fabric, for instance, is made up of plastic. Plastic production is known to generate many greenhouse gas emissions since it is made using oil and natural gas. Furthermore, the energy used to run garment factories increases carbon dioxide emissions.
Next, the industry is also the second largest consumer of water, coming only second to the agriculture industry. Clothing production requires so much water because cotton, a commonly used fabric type, requires an extensive amount to produce. During the clothing production process, water is also used in processes such as dyeing the cloth.
While clothing production creates lots of harmful substances and uses lots of natural resources, in the United States, approximately 85% of all clothing produced ends up in landfills. Annually, the average American produces 82 pounds of clothing waste.
This shows how an abundance of production has led to most clothes being wasted. A focus on reusing clothes over promoting more production is important to combat wastage.
In 2018, there were 14 million tons of textile waste and 2.5 million tons of textile recycled, which shows how most clothes end up in the trash.
Furthermore, millions of tons of textile waste are dumped into sub-Saharan Africa, creating landfills in countries like Ghana.
Consumerism has increased among the general population, leading to companies producing large quantities of clothes. This in turn increases the consumption of natural resources and produces more waste.
Not only does fast fashion have extremely negative effects on the environment, but it is also unethical due to its harmful treatment of garment workers. Countless fashion companies outsource their labor from developing countries, such as Bangladesh and Vietnam. Companies do this so that they can produce clothes for much cheaper prices, as labor in other countries is cheaper than in the US.
Around 75 million people work in the clothing industry, and less than 2% of them make a livable income. These workers face extremely poor working conditions, many working around 96 hours weekly.
For example, in 2013, the Rana Plaza building collapsed, killing 1,134 people. This shows that the workers are placed in dangerous positions and are even at risk of death on the job.
Furthermore, according to the Global Labor Justice, many women face violence on the job. Specifically, H&M workers have reported that they have been physically and verbally abused while working.
The treatment garment workers face worldwide is extremely unethical, and supporting fast fashion companies indirectly supports this treatment. It's important to take action from our own end to avoid supporting these harmful practices.
Now for one essential question. Why is it so difficult to eradicate fast fashion when we know it's harmful for the environment and workers, and it actively receives backlash? A common misconception regarding the minimization of fast fashion is that brands will be incentivized to improve both the quality and sourcing of their garments if we shop sustainably, known as greenwashing.
This belief rides on the knowledge that successful businesses adapt their products to meet customer demand. Basically, if more customers shop sustainably, meaning that customer demand is for sustainable clothes over the harmful practices of fast fashion, companies will be forced to adjust to customer demand in order to make a profit, and they'll follow more sustainable methods.
However, greenwashing is just that, wishful thinking. This belief, this misconception only leads to harm through the usage of greenwashing, the act of making false or deceptive statements about a company's sustainability and environmentally friendly approaches.
As customer demand for sustainability in fashion rises, it is much easier and much cheaper to stretch the truth about the use of sustainable practices instead of actually reforming harmful production methods. And so, greenwashing is a misleading practice used by corporations to continue their usage of unsustainable procedures, harming the environment, employees, and consumer trust.
It can range from being overtly manipulative and even illegal, such as falsifying results of carbon emission testing, to more commonly being applied with a subtle approach, with nature-themed infographics, buzzwords like conscious and eco-friendly, along with sustainability pledges.
In simpler terms, greenwashing is when companies pretend to be sustainable, which is harmful and deceptive to consumers who would like to shop sustainably. It is commonly integrated with fast fashion corporations looking to avoid backlash and increase sales while still exercising harmful business practices. In fact, screening suggests that 39% of sustainability claims in the fashion industry are either untrue or misleading.
For example, while companies claim to use recycled material or promote circular fashion, the truth is that a mere 3% of all clothing is actually made from recycled materials, and the resulting fabrics are often disposed of rather than recycled once again, which is shown by how even less than 1% of all clothing is made from reused fabrics.
Let's take a deeper look at one of the most objectionable yet widespread cases of greenwashing, the H&M Conscious Collection. In order to make more sales despite backlash from their harmful practices used to create cheap and convenient clothing, H&M created the Conscious Collection, promoting guilt-free shopping at low prices. However, they consistently stretched the truth about claims made for the collection, overstating the amount of recycled materials used, while really creating more pollution and waste. Through this expose of the H&M Conscious Collection, it was found that over 50% of sustainability claims were proven to be deceptive.
Now, how can we become sustainable shoppers today even though fast fashion is so ingrained in our society? One way to do this is by being mindful about fabric types.
Synthetic fibers such as nylon and polyester are chemically produced fibers that negatively impact the environment throughout their production and disposal. For example, they are non-biodegradable, taking up a lot of space in landfills. In the United States alone, the average person discards 80 pounds of clothing and textiles per year.
Non-biodegradable fabrics add up and pose a threat to our planet. When it comes to production, it takes 98 million tons of oil, among other natural resources, to produce synthetic fibers. The production of synthetic fibers contributes to high amounts of greenhouse gas emissions, as well as to the shedding of microplastics, which flow into waterways and harm marine ecosystems. The environmental impact of synthetic fibers is detrimental, and this impact can be reduced if we use more natural fibers.
Natural fibers such as cotton, silk, and wool are much more environmentally friendly because they are biodegradable. However, one downside is that the production of natural fibers uses a lot of water. Still, it uses less energy and produces less carbon dioxide than the production of synthetic fibers, so it's better to purchase clothing made with natural fibers, while not in excess, as a sustainable alternative. Cotton, for instance, can even be composted. Nearly every store in the mall, any place where you might shop, falls under the category of fast fashion. Saying that you won't shop fast fashion ever again may be a promise that cannot be fulfilled. However, one thing that we can do is to make conscious choices while shopping. Looking out for natural fibers over synthetic when making new purchases, even if they are from fast fashion brands, will not only make your clothes last longer, but it will also leave a less harmful impact on the environment. Let's go into detail about some more sustainable alternatives to fast fashion.
One of the best ways is to shop secondhand. Shopping secondhand allows us to reduce waste and to purchase long-lasting, good quality products at affordable prices. You can find timeless pieces of clothing, accessories, and whatever else you may need for lower prices than the cost of fast fashion.
However, there is often a stigma around purchasing secondhand clothes, thinking that it makes people seem poor or that it's gross to wear someone else's old clothes. But the truth is, it's extremely sustainable for the environment. You can find things that are really fashionable, even from high-end brands if you purchase from consignment stores. And they are perfectly clean since you can wash them as much as you'd like.
Overall, overcoming the stigma around shopping secondhand is vital, as this sustainable practice increases the life cycle of a garment, reducing waste and landfill buildup. The garment life cycle is a very important part of sustainability. It's pivotal to extend it to avoid harm to the environment. The disposal of clothing can also have a very big environmental impact, one of the most polluting on Earth, especially if it ends up in a landfill and takes decades to decompose, or if it's incinerated and creates harmful fumes.
Another way to extend the life cycle of an article of clothing, besides shopping secondhand, is to learn how to sew and mend clothes. If your favorite pants get ripped, there is no need to purchase another pair and contribute to waste by throwing them away, when you can easily fix them for free.
Another common occurrence is getting bored of your clothes. An item you once found cute may now be ugly or no longer on trend, therefore sitting in your closet ready to be thrown out. Instead, you can try upcycling your clothes to transform unwanted pieces to be trendy and customized.
A third way to extend the garment life cycle is by following slow fashion, the act of buying clothes purposefully, intended for long-term usage to reduce waste with the amount of clothes in landfills. In this method, you actually can purchase fast fashion pieces, in terms of affordability, mindfully but to a minimum.
If you do so, consider wearability and product life. Will I wear this garment often? Will this garment get easily spoiled? Was this garment made using biodegradable fabrics?
To implement slow fashion on a more dedicated scale, you can keep something called a capsule wardrobe, which allows for minimal consumption while optimizing outfits. To create a capsule wardrobe, you would curate specific timeless pieces to mix and match to reduce the amount of waste you would produce and purchases you make. An example of this would be a restricted and curated collection of 30 pieces of clothing to alternate from.
While it may seem easy to ignore the ethical and environmental concerns of fast fashion and continue to buy clothes that fit the ever-changing trends, we encourage you to pursue sustainable fashion.